Hello and welcome to Back of the Net and Beyond, where today I'm going to be speaking to former British sprint and hurdling track and field athlete, Kriss Akabusi. How you doing, Kriss? You okay?
Doing fantastic, Danny, and I love the name you've given your podcast, Back of the Net. Any young kid who get the sport, bam, they can, you can just...
Exactly. It's, to be honest, it was my wife that came up with the name. It's not as easy as you think. You try and encapsulate what you're going to be talking about going forward. And I wanted to involve an element of sport, but also beyond that as well. So hence that's where the name came from. But yeah, I mean, how's life treating you at the moment? How are you keeping yourself active?
Well, Danny, life's great. I mean, at the moment, you and I are speaking, we're still in lockdown. Things have been eased a little bit, but I like going to watch football. Can't go watch my favourite football team, West Ham, because of social distancing measures. Don't laugh at me. I know we've all got our cross to bear. I mean, I'm fortunate. I'm a bit of a isolationist. I like to be on my own. So I live on my own. I've got a lovely home. I go for a run every day. I do my circuits. I'm studying, so I love my reading and my writing. So I'm in a great place, Danny.
Brilliant. I mean, so you said you go running every day. So you're still keeping yourself physically active then?
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult, I think. Well, I speak for myself. I mean, I've been dedicated to sport for over 50 years now. Like many people that you will speak to who've had a professional sporting career, they were semi-decent at school. I mean, I wasn't the best at school, but semi-decent at school. Yeah. And I was a physical athlete at school. And then, you go on and you get into your career. And even when I retired, I still kept on physical activity for a few years. And then I got a little bit lazy. I got into my 50s. And I stopped for a couple of years.
Okay.
And I just didn't like the feeling. I just didn't like the feeling of not being in shape, not being able to run for the bus. Not that I catch the bus. Not being able to go run for the bus, And so, every day I do at minimum 3 miles, depending on what I'm going to do. 5 miles,
Really? That's good.
Yeah. And a little circuit. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. And then you said you touched on the fact that you're studying at the moment. So what are you studying?
So the posh term is existentialism, existential philosophy. But what it really means, it is the nature of what it means to be. So the big questions that I'm asking myself as I get to sort of, the last sort of 25, 30% of my life. And you might think it's like, well, it's a bit late to be asking this question, but here you go. Who am I? Who am I? Why am I here? How ought I to be? And the real question, which gets more material as you get older, what happens once I die? Is there endless nothingness, or are there heavens and angels and trumpets? Wow. And so that's the existentialism is about the nature of being. What does it mean to be in essence across the board, but especially for us as human beings?
Understand. I mean, that sounds pretty deep, pretty interesting as well. I've never really heard anyone kind of study that side of anything like that, really. It sounds pretty interesting. How long have you been doing that?
So I've been studying. So I'm my master's now, and I'm actually in my last 3 months of my master's. That's been a 2-year program. I did a year foundation degree before then. Yeah. But I've always been somebody that's enjoyed reading. Even in my sports career, I read a lot, much more Christian works then, because I was a full-on sort of fundamentalist Christian, and I went to a Christian university for 2 years as a sports person. Okay. I did my MBA program in 2012, 2014. So I've always been somebody who'd like to study and to read. To be fair, it's just that I wanted to give it a little more of a formal structure around my reading, and also to make it practical. So my actual master's degree will be in something called existential coaching, which actually enables me to, and I know we're going to be talking about transferable skills, we're going to be talking about sports people who transfer from the sort of the hotbed of being in the arena to life hereafter. Well, I'd be in a position to support people with their thinking about who they're transitioning to. When you were a sport person, Danny, you know, when you were playing football, when I was running, it was very clear who we were, what we were about, why we got up, what we got to do, what winning was, what losing was. When you get out, obviously, from sport, it's not so easy. So my coaching degree would help me help people navigate those choppy waters.
That's massive, because that interlinks with kind of my train of thought behind doing this actual back of the net and beyond. I'm navigating my way through speaking to people. I've never done it before, and it's just circumstantial. I'm actually speaking to people remotely now, obviously because of lockdown. What I initially wanted to do when I spoke to you on the phone was speak to football players, athletes in other sports, whether they're young or old, about obviously the transferable skills I've got and how to go about maybe sourcing another career outside of sport or in sport, and tell my story as well and how I went about it. And I got some positive feedback from a couple of football clubs, quite high profile ones. But then I thought about it, and there was always something in the back of my mind holding me back, and it was the logistics behind it, because I work a 9-to-5 job every day. So for me to have access to the football club would mean I'd have to take a day off from work, and it just wouldn't work. So I thought, well, how can I get the message across with little or no cost to myself? And obviously the lockdown happened. I thought, well, I could speak remotely to people and get their story, and obviously do it that way. And it's working quite well, to be honest. You know what it's like. Obviously, I'm contacting people like obviously randomly, kind of cold calling to a certain degree, which is part of my job anyway. And I don't mind doing that. You get some positive response. Sometimes people don't get back to you for whatever reason. That's just how it is. But regardless of that, it's not going to deter me from doing what I'm doing. I always say, look, if you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no. So once again, like I said, thanks for coming on the show. Obviously, for anyone that doesn't know yourself, in brief, you're a legend within athletics. Well, to me anyway. That's my personal opinion. And obviously, you're at the top of your field, your disciplines, for many years. I mean, you competed between the 80s and 90s. And from what I remember, you're always either top or second or third in the world. So how did it feel, obviously, because we'll touch on, obviously, growing up and leading towards that, but we'll kind of start in the middle and talk about your career and obviously when you were at the top and competing, and how did it feel and how do you navigate that on a daily basis?
The short answer is it's a fabulous feeling. It is amazing to actually represent your country at major championships, whether it's Olympics, Worlds, Europeans or Commonwealth, to recognise that, well, there's a sense that you are doing it not just for yourself, but also for the country. You can't go to the Olympics as an individual. You have to represent your country, so you're doing it for your country. And then not only to go to the Olympics, but to get onto the podium, which I did 3 times, is an awesome experience. The thing is, I think for us as sports people, you know, it's almost like an extended playground. Now, I took it seriously. It was very, very professional. But in the end, I was running for a living. And I was surrounded by people who were running for a living. And all the sort of, the sort of banter and the jokes that go on when when you're in the playground and when you're in the training ground, should I say? Yeah, sorry, a little bit caught a Freudian slip there. But it is almost like a little bit like play, and you're all the best of the best, and so you can take the rip out of each other. I remember one time I was out in California, warm weather training with a bunch of guys from London and Birmingham, and me and my group were from Southampton, and we'd just come off the Commonwealth Games in 1990. And there was a guy there called Marcus Adams. And Marcus Adams was the Commonwealth 200-metre champion. And we were laughing and we joked and we had all that banter. And he was trying to big up his chest and because he's Commonwealth champion. And we said, shut up, Marcus. You're number 3 in London. Clifford Christie was ahead of him. John Regis was ahead of him. That's Bantersville. And so, that's so, and anyone who's into sports, that sort of stuff goes on. Now, it was a phenomenal career, You're very, very proud when you're on the podium, you represent your country, you get in the medal, but it is an extended playground.
Yeah, 100%. I second that. Just because I never really saw it as work. Yeah, obviously my mindset was, okay, I'm earning a living through this. So in theory, it is work. But you touched on the playground element of it, and I second that just because you're going in every day, you're with your mates. Obviously, some of them you get on with more than others, but essentially you're a team. And the banter's flying around, and when it's time to work, you work. And then obviously when you go home, sometimes you socialise with your teammates and sometimes you don't. But that togetherness and that work ethic and that team ethic, the highs and lows, you experience them as a team, essentially. And sometimes what I found in football, slightly different to maybe athletics, I found that when you leave a club, you don't really keep in touch with those players. It's one of those situations where you say, yeah, keep in touch, and you may do for a period of time, and then you are obviously at another club and you need to just be immersed in that club. I mean, I played for loads of clubs, and I've probably made 5 or 6 proper friends. Bear in mind that a squad is normally, 20, 30 man deep. So if you think of all the clubs I played for, you're looking at probably 8 or 9, spanning 15 years. And I've only made, 5 or 6 friends. So there's that element of it as well, where in theory, you're kind of, yes, you're teammates, but you're not essentially friends, you're kind of, you work colleagues essentially.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, you mentioned when you were talking about obviously your career and who you were playing with, who you competing with. You mentioned some big names, John Regis, Olympian Christie. I mean, what was it like? What was it like to work with those people on a daily basis?
So I mean, you made a great distinction because look, I don't want to be frivolous. You are very, very serious as an athlete. You know what you're there about because you in football, me in athletics, you get measured. You know, how many goals did you score? How quick did you run? Simple as winner, loser. So every day you go into work, when the brass tacks are laid down, you go and deliver, you do your session and you work hard. But the banter flies around. Yes, and of course, there's some amazing characters. Friends, I've got friends that I'm still friendly with now. But when I say friendly, what I mean is we meet up every now and again on the golf course or some sort of major dinner. Roger Black, Derek Redmond, John Regis. I don't see Linford as much as I used to. But you've got your own life. And I don't know if you was married when you were a sportsman, Danny, but I was married. So you're the same, right? So all the banter down the track, all the jokes down the track, but then I don't take my mates home. I go home.
Nah.
I've got a wife, I've got kids.
Yeah, I wanted to switch off. As soon as I kind of got home, it's family time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there are people that are different, but I think the majority of sportsmen are alike. It is work, it is play, but rest, family, that's something completely different. And I would like to think you develop your own friendship group because it must be very, very lonely if you retire from the sport and all your friends are in the sport.
100%.
Because I know we're not there yet, but one of the toughest things to deal with is the identity crisis. When you retire from the sport and everyone around you, extended by the media, still look at you as the athlete, but you're not the athlete. So it must be very hard if all your friends are in that group and you still see them performing and you haven't got somewhere to go home to. So for me, it was very important to be able to divorce my social life from my sporting life.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that because that's something I'm again passionate about. Do you think sometimes because people say athletes are defined by their sport, it's harder for them to transition away from that? Again, you can't really help how people perceive you. Essentially, obviously, your behaviour and things can assist their train of thought. But essentially, if they want to see you as an athlete, then that's up to them. But if you then are submerged in that and you're in that bubble of being a sprinter, footballer, rugby player, whatever, do you think then, because not necessarily lifestyle, but you see yourself in that bubble and you've always been in that and you've used it to assist you in whatever way you wanted to during your career, to then move away from that and be doing something else completely different. Do you think that's
Danny,
hard? Do you think that
Danny,
would make it harder?
yeah, Danny, look, it's very, very hard because it's not just the 10 years, if you're lucky, that you've had as a professional sports person. It's the 20 years before that.
Yeah.
Just think back to when you were a kid, Danny, and they chuck the ball on the playground. When they're picking the team, Danny is the first person to be picked.
Yeah.
You were good at school. You know, if there was sports going on, it didn't matter what it was. I'm always going to be in the Kriss, you're on my side. You know, we want Kriss on our side. So you're the first. So and then pretty quickly people go, oh, he's a good runner. Oh, he's a good football player. So from very early age, you begin to identify as a good sports person. Yeah. All the boys in the school. You and I are boys. If it's a girl, might be different. But all the boys in the school talk about you as a sports person. You feel like a sports. You know, the girls in the school talk about you as a sports person, and so you feel good about yourself as a sports person. And then as you start, going from school level to county level, of course, your whole identity is wrapped up. Just think about that. That's, so from 12, 15, 18, now you make the professional ranks, 25, 30. Yeah. The media are talking about you. You're on the back pages of whether it's the local rag or the national rag. You're on the radio, television. For you, back of the net, all the adulation.
Yeah.
You cannot help but be wrapped up in the identity of that sports person. And then all of a sudden, almost imperceptible, because it's very difficult for the sportsman to think about retiring, because if you're thinking about retiring in the middle of your heyday, you might ask yourself, are you 100% dedicated to climbing to the top?
Yeah.
You see? So that's the sort of tricky situation you got. And bam, all of a sudden, you're in your last season. It's your last game. It's your last race. And you're retired. That's it. All of that identification. It's over. So yes, of course, Danny, it's a very hard hurdle to cross.
It's a tough subject. And I mean, obviously my experience was completely different to yours because I wasn't the whole household name. So my train of thought was slightly different. Yes, I was 100% dedicated and whatever, but I kind of knew I'd probably have to work afterwards. At the age of 23, 24, I had that mindset, and I think that assisted me when it came to making my transition. And I always say this, I was always me first and then football second, regardless of what anyone else said. So I would always socialise with my mates from day one. My football mates were different. Yeah, we'd go and socialise, Christmas dues and whatever functions we had to go to. But when it came to after the game, after training, I'd go and see my other mates, and it's always been like that. And I've always just been one of the boys, down to earth and whatever else. But at the same time, for you, it was slightly different because you're a household name still to this day. And obviously when you were playing, even more so. Sorry, when you were competing, even more so. So how did you cope with that element of it? Obviously you touched on it slightly, but what was it like with, say, the media following you around, especially when it was leading up to Commonwealth Games or World Championships and obviously during those competitions as well? How did you cope with that?
I was very lucky, Danny. I competed at a time when British Athletics was on the TV. We only had 4 channels then: BBC, ITV, BBC Two, Channel 4. So people had to watch it. Unfortunately, and athletics Friday night, Saturday night, it's all over the place. And I've got one of those personalities that on the outside is very gregarious and brilliant in your face. So the media were good with me and for me. They highlighted my personality. People wanted to talk to me. So I got on very well with that side of life.
I think your personality helped.
Pardon me?
I definitely think your personality helps because I always remember I was only young. I was born in '81.
Yes.
You were competing in the '80s and '90s, so
yeah.
in the 90s, I was more familiar with yourself and other athletes like Linford and John Regis and things. So I always saw you as someone who was always seemed happy and energetic and just happy to be involved. So that always struck a chord with me because I thought someone's competing on that stage at that level, but they're still happy. Because sometimes I look at footballers and other sports and I think when they're playing or after the game or I don't know, they're traveling to a game. Everything's very stiff and regimented and formal. But when you look at, like, say, the NFL or more so the American sports, basketball and things, they're all relaxed and they embrace the culture. And I think that's partly because the media over here are slightly different. And it's very, if you were to say that they're very judgmental and everyone is really, if you were to see someone approaching a game, walking towards the dressing room or whatever it may be, and there's a big tournament or a big competition, and they were dressed casually, maybe on their phone and headphones and whatever, your preconceptions are, oh, you probably don't care. I'm not saying that's for everyone's preconception or everyone's view, but I do think that certain parts of media do kind of judge people based on that. Whereas in America, it's more about you as a person before you're an athlete. So what are you listening to? What music you listen to? What's your cultural background? Like they embrace how you dress and things like that more. I always used to comment or think about when the England football team were playing in the tournament, and then when you have the picture when they're getting off the plane and they're all on the stairs of the actual plane, they just all seem very stiff and like nervous, and I always got that feeling. But whereas obviously when I saw you, it was like the first athlete I saw who was just themselves, really, just energetic, and it just seemed like you enjoyed yourself.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think what we have to appreciate is that in the United Kingdom, for sure, sports roots are in an amateuristic philosophy, and sport, organised sport as we know it, back in the sort of 18th and 19th century, was something done by gentlemen. Yeah. It wasn't a working class thing. It was what gentlemen did. It was in their leisure time that they did it. Yeah. And the idea, well, there were rules and regulations, and there was decorum and deportments, and you were not supposed to be seen to be trying too hard. Everything was supposed to come very natural, and you were very gracious. And, the British took that throughout the empire, wherever they went, these amateur rules. Now, I think that what you're talking about, that is that sort of legacy of the amateurism and militarism, the military comportment. Now, so I think that's what you're talking about, is that there's still in the United Kingdom and the Western world that legacy, whereas America, colonists, much more free, much more rugged, a way of entertaining the grassroots people. Now, something like football and athletics clearly is now dominated by working class folk. Yeah. Of course, you have, your sort of middle class schools that get involved in it, public schools, and middle class folk. But for me personally, as I said, I think I was very fortunate that my personality is it's just one of those things that I was born with. You can say either God-given or natural. This ebullience. Yeah. I laugh at stuff. I laugh at stuff, get excited about stuff. I've still got that aspect of a child within me. And I mean, even now, at my age, I'm well into my 60s, I've still got that childlike essence to me. And it's something that the media have captured and have made more of. I mean, there's a lot more to me than the media make out. But nonetheless, it's the aspect of me that the media portray. And so maybe you just caught that. Okay, yeah, I'm having a great time. Because, Danny, we're lucky, mate.
Yeah.
We're lucky. For the first 30-odd years of our life, we did boys' own stuff. Boys dream of being us. Yeah. I know you played for Leicester, didn't you? You played for Leicester. Yeah. You played for a First Division Premier League side, Danny. Boys dream of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I dreamt of playing for professional football, and I had 2 left feet.
Yeah.
So I never lost sight of the fact I was doing something I loved. I was playing on a playground. I worked very hard, but I was very, very lucky. I mean, you train with people. I've trained with people who've worked harder than me. Yeah. Just weren't good enough. Just couldn't cut.
That's it. And on the other side as well, I've worked with people who maybe didn't train as hard, didn't really care, didn't really look after themselves off the pitch or on it.
Yes.
But then they went to the higher echelons of football. So there is an element of luck there. Timing is everything in everyday life, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and obviously you do need an element of luck as well. Because sometimes people's careers are cut short through injuries and whatever else. Luckily for me, I didn't really have any major injuries. But yeah, I mean, it's true what you're saying. We are lucky, and sometimes I think we forget that because essentially it is everyone's dream to be an athlete, or one of their dreams anyway. And getting there is very, very hard. And I don't think until you're out of it, you realise how hard it is.
Yes.
Especially from the perspective of when other people talk to you who maybe not, who haven't had a career in sport, and they see what you've done and they say, oh, wow, you did this. And that's when you realise, for me, certainly when I stopped playing, I'm not really one to reminisce. I just kind of moved on.
Yes.
But other people still talk about, okay, you played football and who did you play for? And I can see in their face, like, because sometimes I can go on. I won't necessarily bring it up. So people sometimes don't even know I played when I'm at work and stuff, and clients and things. And they'll find out from someone or whatever. And then they'll ask the question, oh, you never told me. And it's like, well, you didn't ask, so I'm not going to just come out and say it. And then they ask basic questions or whatever, however in depth they want to go. And then I kind of go on and explain certain things. And you can see in their face like how interested they are.
Yes.
So yeah, we are very lucky. You just need to remember that as well. I mean, in terms of you, Kriss, I know you picked up loads and loads of medals, golds, silvers, bronzes. And like I said, you're at the top of the game for years and years. So to sustain that must have been very difficult. But what was it like competing in major tournaments, world championships? Obviously, you're with other athletes who are trying to get the better over you, with your teammates as well, and obviously competing against other nations in the same kind of vicinity. You're all staying and lodging in the same area. What was it like in that environment?
So again, I was fortunate in as much as I had the sort of personality that when it really, really mattered, I delivered. And I think the reason that was because I was absolutely petrified. So I'd worked all year, 4 years to get to the Olympics or get to the World Championships. And then when the day comes that you've got to go to the track, I was absolutely petrified. Really? And I would be, my legs would feel weak and I'd feel just, my gut would be churning. And I asked myself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? You go into the stadium but then there's this transformation. And what would happen for me, I would get to the starting line. The guy would say, tracks us off. And that would be my last little bit of nervous energy, tracks it off. And then, I don't know, then something would just change and I would realise, well, there's nothing you can do about it now. You're here, you're on the line, and these other 7 guys want what you want, and that's to win this race. And you've got 60,000 people in this stadium, and a few million people out there are going to be watching. And they're going to be watching who's going to win this race. It's now do or die. And then I would just say to myself, my creed was Geronimo. And it would just all go from me. And I would just go into the blocks like, it's going to sound dramatic, but like a lamb to the slaughter. Okay, well, I'm here now. What will be, will be. And then as I calm into the blocks, it's amazing because actually how alienating it felt before when you're in the arena and how noisy and scary that felt. Once you climb into the blocks, you feel like you're at home again. You've done this so many times before. You just relax to your fate and then bam, you just explode. And there's nothing better there's a sound, the blocks making sound like that. And all before you know it, you're up, you're springing, and all your sinews, you're going around a turn, you're standing tall, you're rolling. It's all familiar territory. You're not forcing it, you're letting it happen. Round the bend, up into the home straight. You can see the tape. You can see bodies and arms all of a sudden the noise comes back into your face. You cross the line, and it's just another one of those brilliant moments. Wow. It's just one of those brilliant moments, and you would wish, because you then feel you are literally, if you won, on top of the world.
I can imagine.
And it's just an amazing feeling.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's great how you just described it there, because it felt like I was actually running the race. So you've crossed the line now. What's it like crossing the line knowing that you've won, and you've won like your first gold medal in a major tournament? What was that like?
Oh, well, it depends. So for example, the biggest medal I ever won as an individual was the European Championships gold in 1990, and I broke the British record. And initially, everything I've just explained to you happened, and I crossed the line, and I was just absolutely ecstatic that I'd crossed the line.
Yeah.
And then I remember, because I said I was deep into my Christian faith then. I fell on my knees and gave a prayer to God to thank Him for allowing me to stay. As you said, sport is precarious, being fit, healthy, no injuries, and to be able to deliver on that day. And then when I looked up, I saw the time on the clock. Okay. 47:82. It was a new British record that had stood for 22 years by a guy called David Henry. And I remember that race when I was a kid. He did it in 1968 in the Olympic Games. And when I saw 47:82, I could, I just exploded again. And I was like a wild banshee. I was like, yeah! And I was screaming, Danny. I was screaming. I was shouting. I was running. And you know what? I didn't know where I was going. I was like that. And I was just buzzing around. And I had this new drain of energy. And I was just like that. And everyone was going, yes, it's a British record. It was just, honestly, Danny, that mate was the highlight of my career. I mean, there's another one I'll talk to you later on, but for me as an individual, that race is almost unspeakable. Because Danny, you said you was born in 81, and Kriss Akabusi later on in the 90s. Yeah. But Danny, I was a kid from the children's home. I was a kid in the children's home. I had no pennies to rub together. I was nobody special. I was never the best sportsman at school. I'm a European champion, British record holder. It's me. Yeah. It's me, Danny. It was just unbelievable.
That's crazy. And then, so you said like you weren't necessarily the best at school and things like that. So in terms of that, and then getting to where you got to, was that down to all the usual hard work, dedication?
Yeah, it is, but it's also, well, yes, yeah. But basically, Danny, when I went to school, so I was brought up in a children's home, and most of the kids in the children's home didn't go to school. So, they would leave the home, and then they would in their rucksacks, they'd have their clothes, and they'd take off their school uniform, and they'd go down the West End. I actually went to school. So I was given praise for going to school. I didn't have to do any work. So I was a clown at school, messed up, got the cane. They used to call punishment. I used to get the cane, stand outside the headmaster's office, and everyone used to laugh for being the clown. And I never took anything seriously. When I joined the army, I took my sport seriously. All of a sudden, I turned up for training. I was committed to the session. I was recording what my sessions were. And I just got better. Week, month, year, I got better. And so, and I was never blessed with the greatest speed, Danny, but what I had, my body didn't break down. Yeah. So a lot of talented athletes, they're so finely tuned that they can trip off the curb and break their leg. Yeah. I could do a back foot, somersault, fall on my head, get up and do a run. My body didn't break down. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So year on year. And as I already said, I don't know what it's like, I don't know where it's from, but actually, when it really, really matters, I can bring everything I got to the pie.
Okay.
If you beat me, you've beaten 100% of what I got. You know, and I haven't got, you know, whereas there are other people, you beat them, they just not performed for the day.
Yeah.
They just, you know, they just haven't brought it all into the arena.
Mm.
I was never the greatest, but I was dedicated, committed, didn't break down. And when I was on, you were going to have a race today, mate.
Mm.
You know, if you, I know you was like an attacker, weren't you?
Yeah, left winger. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, if I was your Danny, I mean, you might nutmeg me, and you might do me, but mate, you're going to have a tough day today. And I'll tell you what, Danny, if you score, you're going to go, mate. I tell you what, I didn't think that was coming. Because I am going to be over you like a rush, and you're going to say he can't do that. You're going to duff me up, go past me, and out of nowhere, my bendy man leg is going to come round and nick the ball. And you're going to say, you can't do that.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I've come up against some players like that, and it's like, where have you come from? Like, yeah. So yeah, I know what you mean. I can reference that and relate to it. I was going to ask you about the military and your time in the military. What was that like?
So I've got to say it's great because the army. If I hadn't joined the army, I wouldn't have done athletics. You know, because I was a ragamuffin when I left the children's home, and I joined the army for the discipline because I knew that I couldn't survive out there on my jack. You know, I knew that if I was out there on my jack, I'll be in trouble. I would have definitely got involved in gangs, not because I'm a roughy, toughy guy. I'm not. It's just I'm easily led, and I probably wouldn't have done the nicky, and I wouldn't have done, but I'd have been the watch out man, and you know, I'd have got it done. So I joined the army. Army was good for me, introduced me to athletics, gave me discipline and dedication, gave me a career path. But on the other side, and this is, you know, it's nothing personal for me against the army. At that time, racism, man, it was just, you know, now, when I look back, I can see what I had to deal with. Back then, it was just get on with it, mate. I mean, all the lyrics you can imagine, you got from, it doesn't matter where it was in the echelon, from the top officers down to the boys. Yeah. You had to deal with stuff. You had to deal with lyrics, man. And I mean, you know, I
suppose you had probably, because that was the culture there, and that element behind it, you had no one to really talk to.
Nah, who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to talk to? They're gonna give you lyrics themselves and shut up. I can't even bring the stuff to my mouth. Yeah. They're gonna bring the lyrics to yourself.
Wow.
They're gonna give you lyrics, man. You just shut up, keep your nose clean. And the thing is, though, so I'm in no way justifying the racism in the lyrics, but if you could, take it, give as good as you get, you know. On the sports field, in rugby, give somebody one of those. Ooh, flipping hell, yeah. Remember who it is, yeah? You remember, you know? Give it. All of a sudden, actually, no, he's one of ours. He's one of us. Yeah. And then you didn't. I'm not justifying it, but you know what I'm trying to say. You learn. You know. I mean, I don't know if it's the same in football, but you rock and tumble. You go to the flow. You give as good as you get. Okay, we'll leave him alone. He's one of us.
I understand, yeah. I mean, I compare that to, it's not as harsh, but I compare it to when you sign for a new club or when a player signs for your club. You kind of test the water in terms of their character. Are they going to integrate with us? You test the banter, so you go hard with them, test them in training with their touch and whether they're fast or whether they can deal with certain balls and stuff. Because if they can't and if they go into their shell, they're just an easy target. And that's just what it is. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, and I'm not saying in any way, shape or form compare it to racism or anything, but I think what you're trying to say runs parallel to, okay, when you sign for someone new, you need to prove yourself, regardless of how much you sign for or regardless of your reputation. Sometimes it's worse if you come with a big reputation because there's big expectations. Many times I went to clubs and it was a case of, okay, well, afterwards, I didn't know this, but when I'm getting changed, because I look, well, I am slight and I'm small, but when I took my top off, back in the day, even still now, I don't do any exercise, I'm pretty ripped. So six-pack, and people didn't expect to see that. And it wasn't until afterwards, it was when I was at Bournemouth at the time, it was a few weeks after signing for them, And one of the boys said, "Oh, like when you first came in, I looked at you and I thought, who's this skinny dude? Like 5'10". And I was like, okay. And then he said, but then when you took your top off to get changed, I was like, oh, okay, that's why. So it was basically sizing me up. And
Yeah.
I've done it to people indirectly. You think, especially if they're in your position, you think, nah, I'm not having that. And then you're getting raises, and then suddenly it's just, I know what you mean. And that's just the competitive edge of an athlete, essentially.
That's right. That's right. And it's I mean, again, not wanting to be sexist. I know women play sport, and I know they have their banter, but you know, there is a male way of being. And the army I joined was quite masculine, and so was athletics I did. And so, mate, if you want to run with alpha males, you got to shape up.
That's it.
You just have to shape up. And again, it's not right or wrong. It's just the way it was. Yeah. And well, I feel no way. I'm going to work with you, and if you want to work, let's work.
Yeah.
You know, I just rock.
Yeah, just have it.
Yeah. Cool. There's nowhere to go. Let's just rock. And then, you know, it's okay. A couple of those. This guy's all right. You're down at a bar having a few berries. I'm not a drinker.
Yeah.
But you got to show I can do. I had to show I could do it.
Yeah.
And I told me, okay, he's all right. You can do one of those. I don't have to come anymore.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I mean, obviously, so growing up then, like, what was it like for you? Because you said you grew up in a children's home. I mean, how was that? And how did you deal with that?
Yeah, so my mother and father came from Nigeria, and they went back to Nigeria when I was 4. I was born here in the UK. And then there was this war in Nigeria, and I had to go to a children's home. I cried every day from being 4 till 12, looking for my mum and my dad, you know, well, my mum really. And then I got to 12 and I realised she wasn't coming. And so again, okay, mate, you got to crack on, son. You got to get on with it. So that's when I sort, because I was quite a serious kid as a youngster, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9. I was quite serious because my mum and dad said they were Africans, and they were very, very serious about their education. And I was the eldest child. I mean, they both came in on scholarships, and so that was drilled into me. But then I just flicked some fingers when they weren't coming back. I said, okay, flick fingers. Yeah. And I just did my own thing, and I just played the clown really. The home was. I mean, I know a lot of people have had some bad stories about children's homes. I was okay. I didn't get abused. Well, mentally, maybe, but not physically or you know, sexually. Although when I was a young kid before I got into children's homes, so before I was 6, we had some. When I say we, my brother and I had some physical abuse then. But I think the underlying thing with everything is that my childhood has just told me to get on with stuff. You know, I mean, I'm still a gregarious person, and that gregarious personality was honed in the home where I had to get on. And I found that if I laughed and got on with everything, I was non-threatening and I wasn't attacked every day. So, you know, I'd laugh and get involved and tell jokes and, you know, be the joke and get the cane, and I was never attacked. But actually, it's covered over this I'm quite shy, really, and vulnerable, and so the shy, vulnerable kid could hide behind this gregarious persona. And so I think that's when I joined the army out of the home, what the army then allowed me to unpack more of that steely determination that I didn't know at that stage I had. I was just familiar with the clown and the fun guy. I didn't know that there was this competitive animal inside me. I guess in a children's home, you could say was typified by me trying to survive the trauma of losing my mum. The army and Heather is about me trying to thrive in the world of men.
Right.
Trying to find my own and to thrive, to forge ahead, to find my niche and become something.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I mean, it must have been tough growing up in that environment. I can't imagine. Because obviously you hear these stories, some true, some maybe not, some maybe embellished or whatever. But and it's interesting what you say about your character, and you're saying kind of you were shy and reserved, and you portrayed yourself the opposite to obviously detract from that. And more so now, because I'm not in sport, I see that quite a lot. And then I look back at characters within our dressing room when I was playing, and there was always different characters from different walks of life, different shapes and sizes, as you know. And normally the loudest ones, some of them were naturally confident, but a lot of them weren't. And I still, to this day, I think that people see me as someone who's shy and retiring, and I'm actually the opposite. I'm quietly confident. So you can put me anywhere, and I can speak to anyone more or less about anything. But if you're going to ask me to, I don't know, maybe say strike up a conversation or be loud and brash, that's not me. And sometimes people see me doing stuff, like what I'm doing now, speaking to random people. Some of them hyper profile and some of them not, and they think, oh wow, that's amazing, didn't think you'd be doing that. Or now I'm working in an estate agency and I'm generating business for the company that I'm working for. I'm meeting people and prospecting on a daily basis with people I've never met. And they think, oh, how have you gone from playing football, knowing what you were like when you were playing, to doing that? And it's like, well, that's just me, that's who I am. I was never, in football, if you ask anyone I played with, they would never say, oh, he was like one of the quiet ones, like shy and retiring, sitting in the corner on his own. It wasn't me. I was always involved in the team, banter and whatever else, but I wouldn't be the loudest one in the room. And none of my coaches would ever say, oh, that's that Danny again, like he's the loud one or whatever. It wasn't like that. But I can see why people kind of think, okay, well, or assume that I'm just going to be someone who's quiet just because they may not see me. Even at school pickup, when I'm picking up the kids sometimes, I don't really liaise or speak to like the parents there unless they approach me, and then I'll say whatever I need to say. But sometimes I look at other parents and they're all speaking and whatever, and that's fine, but that's just not me. So it's interesting when I hear people like yourselves who I've got a perception of just because seeing them or hearing stuff about them, and then they say something slightly different. Were you always involved in sport as a youngster? Like at what stage did you start playing?
So I was always involved, but like I was never in the first teams because I was unreliable. You couldn't pick me in the first team, I might not turn up.
Right.
I mean, to be fair, I wasn't good enough to be in the first team. You know, better footballers. I did everything: football, basketball, athletics. I was good at everything, but I wasn't disciplined. You couldn't trust me. I now when I look back, yeah, I was ill-disciplined.
Yeah.
I did what I want, when I want, how I want. You couldn't start putting that piece of the paper and telling me plans, and you run here and you do this and wait for that to happen. Just give me the ball.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've played with people like that, and I've come across people that can hinder people moving forward because people just think, like you said, well, we can't rely on him or her, so we're not even gonna bother entertaining their ability because they're unreliable. Don't know if they're gonna turn up tomorrow or what. If they do turn up, what side of them are we gonna see? So I can understand obviously why people to a certain degree fail because they've got all the ability, but there's other elements that they haven't kind of harnessed. And it's a shame really because a lot of people I played with before who were decent footballers or athletes in other genres, and they just didn't get anywhere just because they just didn't have the know-how, didn't turn up on time. 1 week they were there, 1 week they weren't. It just, no discipline.
Yeah,
so
Danny, I think that though, see, to sort of support the young child that is wayward, you don't learn that sort of stuff out of a vacuum. See, if you've got a chaotic life at home, you're gonna have a chaotic life outside the home.
Yeah.
So if you've got a mum and a dad, I'm going to use your name because I'm talking about a mum and a dad who looks after little Danny and shows Danny that he has to have his boot polished and ready by the door for the morning. And mum sits there lovingly and pressures all your gear and puts it at the end of your bed and says, Dan, this is what you're going to wear in the morning. Your boots are down there. And then you come downstairs and you have your breakfast with mum. I'm making it all up, But if you've got all that order and structure at home, why would you be surprised that Danny's got order and structure in his life?
Yeah, exactly.
But if no one cares and you leave the house and you turn up to school and you haven't got your boots,
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, there's a Jesuit saying, it says, the child is the father of the man. Give me the child and I'll give you the man. So you know, what that young child is shown in his first 7 years, him or her, is what she's going to portray when she's 16 and 18. And so I had a chaotic experience, and I don't know yours, but you know, other sportsmen have had a more structured experience of being in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
You see, and fortunately for me, because there's something called neuroplasticity, and basically what that means is your brain is hardwired to rewire again when you're 16 to 25. At that stage, I was in the army. Yeah. And because I wanted to stay in that system, I learned pretty quickly about form, structure, discipline, determination, goal setting. And so it was that structure of the military that enabled me to reorder my life, rewire my brain, and be organised when I want to be.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I mean, for me, it was a case of, because my parents had no sporting background, not interested in sport or whatever, it was, I used to look at them and see how they conducted themselves. So in their day-to-day life, prepare their clothes, everything was timing. So if I say to my mom tomorrow, Mom, I'm coming to yours at 3, she expects me to be there at like 5 to. If I'm there at 10 past, oh, you're late. So yes. And it's always been like that in the household. So for me, I had that in me, instilled indirectly. So I would always prepare my gear the night before. So if I had a match, prepare everything, clean my own boots. I don't want anyone touching my stuff. Even to this day, like my wife doesn't iron any of my clothes, I do it all myself. Prepare my stuff the night before or even the day before. Like if I come home from work today, finish at 5, home at 5:30, I'll then get changed into my house clothes, but then I'll prepare my clothes for the next day. And that's just how I am. Try to be on time as much as possible. That's just me. So I've always carried that, and that's just how I am. And I try and instill that in my kids now. So it's true what you say about obviously structure and everything else, and it has a massive impact, I do think, from your parents in terms of how you are going forward. Leading on, going forward now, obviously spoke about your career and kind of growing up and stuff. Again, I know you as an athlete, but also TV personality. You know you've done a lot of work in TV and stuff. So what was the thought process when it came to retirement? Was there a trigger point where you thought, okay, my body's not really what it used to be, or I had enough of this? What was the trigger for you?
Yeah, so for me, I became world champion in 1991 as part of the 4x4 relay, which is probably the sort of, well, that is the one event that solidified me in British sporting culture, but certainly athletic culture. And I was a Christian again, I said that a few times. So I was at church, and my pastor said to me, "Oh, Chris, you're having what's called a mountaintop experience. But when you're at the mountaintop, you have to be prepared to go back down to the valley." And what he was just saying basically is that now you're at the top of your career, no matter how long you're up here for, there is going to come a time when you're going to have to finish. And I took that to heart. I was 33 at the time. I was world champion, and I knew, okay, it'd been increasingly harder to get up for training. We had a good training group, and if you weren't at least 90-95%, people would be coming past and barging you out of the way. And it was really tough. You've got young whippersnappers who want what you got. So in 1992, I had a hard year training, keeping back the whippersnappers. And as I've said earlier on, all of a sudden got to Olympic Games. In my mind, I knew then that this was going to be my last Olympics, certainly last Olympics, probably my last World Championships. And one of those, got to my warm weather training camp. My training levels went up high again, got the British record again, and I was able to say there and then, I came third as an individual in the Olympic Games. I'm done. Right. And when I said I'm done, I knew I was done. I knew I wouldn't go back on that. I was done. But what I didn't know is what that really meant. I mean, I knew I didn't want to go. I didn't want to see a training track again. I knew I didn't want to do repetition 300s and 500s and 250s. I knew I didn't want whippersnappers up my backside. I knew I didn't want to go to the line again. I knew that. But what I didn't know was what being an ex-athlete meant, what the world of subjectivity meant. I was going from this world of play. I was going from this world of fierce competition. I was going from this world where athletic might makes right. I was going from this world where I'm the champion because I'm first, into a world where it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
It's does your face fit around here? Do they fancy you? A world where people get ahead of you who are nowhere near as good as you.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for any of that.
Yeah.
It wasn't the world I came from, Danny.
Understand, yeah.
So I was in for a big shock. How did I cope? How did I get into TV? If you asked me a question, the answer was yes. What's the question? If you said, can you? I said, yeah. I said yes to everything. I tried everything. I was indiscriminate. Initially, I tried everything and got very little money for it. Then one time one time I was at Southampton. A Southampton footballer had not showed up at an event. And someone said, oh, we know Kriss Akabusi, we can get him. And then the word was, no, we don't need Kriss. He's been everywhere. He turns up at an envelope. Ooh, and open an envelope. Ooh.
Really?
That hit me in the cherries, that did. And so that's when I got commercial nous on. Yeah. Then I realised if you give stuff away, no one ever pays. And if you give stuff away, not only will they not pay, they won't care if you are found one day sleeping under a bridge.
Right.
And so then I had to get commercial. Then I had to realise the only thing I have to sell is my time, my expertise, my energy and enthusiasm. And if you give that away, you will sleep under a bridge. So then I became a little bit more commercially orientated, and I never looked back.
Oh, that's massive. So is that comment that person made regarding obviously you turning up potentially at Southampton, that was obviously the trigger point for you to then maybe switch on and be more commercially aware of yourself and obviously your own brand.
100%.
Oh, I mean,
100%, Danny. You said it. To be commercially aware and aware of my own brand. 100%. And that no one's going to take care of you. And nobody looks after the good guy. You think you're doing great community service and you're going to schools and fates and you're opening up ribbons and you're doing all this lovely stuff. And they're going, yeah, you fool.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the big gig where the bucks are coming, no. We've seen him at the school fair. We want somebody important, somebody special. Well, I wanted to be important. I wanted to be special.
Yeah.
I wanted to feed my kids.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. So, like, obviously, your mindset is okay. Well, I'll put myself out there and you're obviously trying to do the right by your family, and people are seeing it from the other side, where it's a case of, well, he just says yeah to everything, and we don't really want that.
Yeah. So it was like anything else. I mean, it's part of the human condition. We all. So there are some things, So like, you got a computer. I've got a computer. We all want to have a Me Too. So okay, we've all got a Me Too. But when you want something special, you don't want everybody to have it. You want it to be unique. You want to be part of the tribe that has this something special. So I'm of the Mac computer tribe. It's something special. Yeah. I'm in the nice and gently tribe. Carl, something special. And what I've realised is that I was going out as if I was a Ford Escort. Anyone can have a Ford, and I'm, please bear with me, but anybody can have a Ford Escort, but not everybody can have the Bentley. And so when people wanted the Bentley, they weren't coming to me. So and what I found as well in life is that if you give yourself away, the people that buy you don't respect you either. You turn up and they're not ready for you.
Yeah.
But they're not ready for you. They expect more from you. But the more price you put on your head, the more people are prepared for you, and they pay for it, and they're even gracious that you've done something. You've done what they asked you to do. So it just didn't make sense in the end. And it did make sense, and I made it make sense. And I realised you've got to know who your market is. You've got to do what they say, what they ask you to do, but you've got to value it. You've got to put a price on it. So everybody can't have it. I can't go into the Bentley showroom and say I can only afford a Ford Escort. They'll say, go to the Ford Escort. Yeah. So that day, Southampton footballers were the Bentleys and I was the Escort. And when they wanted a Bentley, they said, we don't want Akabusi. And I thought, okay, understood.
That's powerful information. I mean, even for me, because I'm from a sporting background, but I'm not high profile. So I see a lot where ex-professional footballers finish their career and then suddenly they're on the TV commentating on match day. And obviously they've used their status to get to that level. But I always think, okay, well, their knowledge is great. And obviously they've got a great foresight on the industry itself, whether it be on or off the field. But then I also know that there's players in the lower echelons of football who have also got that level of knowledge, but they're never really going to get given that chance. And if they do, they have to work their way up, which is fine. Sometimes you need to be prepared. It's like when I went into property industry, I know I had to start at the bottom and I worked my way up. That's just how it is. But not everyone's prepared to do that. And sometimes I do think they should spread the wealth. That makes sense. So maybe have someone on who's played lower league football and they may not be a household name. Doesn't mean to say that the information they know isn't as relevant or as knowledgeable as someone who's played their whole career in the Premier League or who's obviously played or competed in world championships like yourself. It's just
the problem you get there though, Danny, is that if you talk about the terrestrial TV station or even the Skies of this world, if you played lower level, the reason they don't choose you and they choose somebody else is brand equity.
That's it, yeah.
They're buying your brand equity. They're saying this is a world-class program, and look, we've got Andy Gray back in the day, or Alan Shearer today. It's the brand equity that goes with it that they're buying. In fact, sometimes they might speak nonsense, but it doesn't matter. It's the top-class brand that's speaking nonsense. Yeah. I mean, again, you go back to the car analogies. Some of my worst cars have been the most expensive. I can buy a Ford Escort, it's all plastic and stuff, and it goes all day.
Yeah.
I've had Jags with wooden beams and leather piping that can't start in the morning.
Yeah. Nah, I relate to that completely, and I know what you're trying to say, and it does make sense. It's definitely the brand, and obviously because there's so much money involved in sport, especially high-profile sport nowadays, they haven't got time to maybe consider someone who's not a household name, because obviously they're trying to increase TV revenue. The only way you really...
But Danny, with that, so the sportsman, let's say a footballer, who really wanted to be a commentator or be in the TV, he or she has to do what you've said. They've got to start at the bottom. And they've got to be, prepared to be the runner, or to be the not what do you call it now? It's like a deputy producer who does, or the runner, or the researcher, or the deputy producer, and do all the legwork. And then they show, okay, they haven't got the brand equity, but they've got the intellectual property rights. They know their stuff. And they're always bringing new angles and new understandings, and they are real. They really are indie. They're indies that are bringing stuff off the grassroots. That then some serious people said, you know what? He might not be the big name, but I want him on stage, because that happens too. You get somebody who's working from behind the camera, and one day the big wig doesn't turn up. They come in and they do a roaring job.
Yeah.
Because they show their depth of insight and the nuances.
Yeah,
I say, I want him.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Do you think more can be done then in terms of like athletes making the transition? Do you think more can be done from organisations, whether it be football, NFL, rugby?
Yeah, I've often thought more should be done. I've often thought that what in business parlance is called the stakeholders, people like sponsors, commercial organisations, shoe companies, federations, leagues. I think they have a duty of care, and they should be held responsible for supporting the transition of sportsmen and women who leave the world of the competitive arena into the next epoch of life. Because as I tried to intuit, and I know your story is different, but many sportsmen, by dint of everybody, including themselves, wanting them to be at their very, very best, have got these blinkers on and they don't look to the left and the right, and then they're confronted with the day of retirement. And I think it's incumbent on all those other stakeholders to be there for them and say, here's a vehicle or a suite of vehicles and tools that you can use over the next 18 months, pick a number, 36 months, to transition. Use it or lose it, it's there for you, which would include money or vouchers to go on this sort of training, this opportunity, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. At the end as well, I think with an opportunity, so that's the push for opportunity to be pulled into a professional organisation.
That's it.
You do all this.
For me, that's the key factor, because it's okay saying, like, here's a course, here's a qualification at the end of it, but then what? Qualification is going to sit on the mantelpiece just collecting dust. You want an avenue into something. Yeah.
So exactly. So you have to have push and pull factors. And a pull factor will be that there will be a phalanx of companies that say, if this person has done A, B, C at this sort of level, we are open for them to be one of our colleagues. Now that will work for the sports person who's used to targets and objectives, who really wants to get on in a particular sphere. Yeah. Now, there's no right of kings. If you're a sports person who thinks, put my fingers in my pockets, walk around, kick some stones, the world owes me a living, you're in for a shock, son.
Exactly. Yeah.
And and in the army, posh language, tango sierra, tough feces.
We can sit here all day kind of deliberating about, okay, well, more needs to be done, but an element of that needs to come from the athlete themselves. And I do know there are a lot of athletes out there who do want to do stuff, they just don't know how to go about it. And like I said before, there's companies out there, organizations offering courses and this and that, and like, I don't know, financing certain things. That's great. But then at the end of it, is there an avenue, or a defined avenue, or a visual avenue that you can see which will lead to something? And if there is, like what you just said there, if there's a pool of companies, decent, successful companies, which are viable, maybe 10, 12, whatever the number may be, that said, if you do X, Y, and Z, and you can prove to us that you've done it, and you've put the time in, here's a job for you. That's a massive caveat. Because I know for a fact, if that was there for me, I would have easily done that. And like I said, my transition, it was seamless, and that's, again, that's circumstantial, very lucky, whatever. But not everyone's like that. So it's a way that what you just explained there, that's a massive way that it's something that can be introduced into the structure of
and it's relatively easily done, because, as I said, these are all stakeholders. They've got a share in the sport. So, at your stadia, they could have a little, brand awareness plaque that shows that they're part of the sport, because they are part of the sport. They're there for the athlete when they retire. So, it should be easy to have an A to Z, soup to nuts, full done suite of stuff that supports the life cycle of the sport. And then the question will be, well, why should we do it? I'll tell you why. Because these are our gladiators. They die for you. You put them up in the arena every day. Everyone get entertained. Are you not entertained, said the gladiator? Yes, we are entertained. And so when they hang up their spurs, boom, society has a debt to these sportsmen and women who've dedicated, yes, I've said it's play, I've said it's fun, but it's also a total commitment of their life at a time when all of their colleagues are climbing the corporate ladder, getting all their numbers, getting all their degrees, and in their 30s are now booted and suited, and at middle, if not top management. So, you know, and the sportsman hasn't even had a time to think about it. The sportsman and woman at 35 is where that guy was, a woman was when they were 18. Emotionally, and as far as, you know, eyes wide open to what really goes out in the world.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why they need support.
It's amazing. I mean, Kriss, it's been amazing speaking to you today. Thanks for your time. Dropped some major bombs, some knowledge. Obviously, you helped me to a certain degree, because certain things you mentioned there, especially the commercial side of things and your own brand and stuff, that's helped me a lot. In terms of what you're doing now, where can people find you?
I'm easily found, Danny, on the internet, akabusi.com. You found me. I've got my name, Kriss Akabusi, 2 S's in Kriss, 1 in Akabusi. Instagram, Twitter. There's loads of fake accounts out there, but that's the way it goes. But if you want to get hold of me, you can get hold of me, and I'm available. Danny, thank you so much for reaching out. And I'll really, to be fair, Danny, I wanted to support you. You're a young man who's done well at sport, but clearly focused on this part of your life. And I was happy to be part and parcel of your story.
Brilliant. Appreciate that feedback. Means a lot. All I can say is, obviously, again, thanks for your time. Good luck in, obviously, whatever you choose to do going forward. I'm sure you'll be a success. Hope to see you again on TV soon.
Take it easy, Danny.
Thank you.
Be good, buddy. Bless you. Bye-bye.